King Ògíamè Atúwàtse III, the Olú of Warri, over the weekend met with the King Musa Xulu KaZwelithini of the Zulu nation in South Africa, where they both signed a symbolic pledge of cooperation between the Itsekiri people of Nigeria and the Zulu people of South Africa. The pledge was signed at the palace during the Nigerian delegation's visit. In his speech to welcome the delegation of the Nigerian kingdom, the king said the visit was far more than a ceremonial visit. It was a sacred reawakening of ancestral bonds between the Zulu nation and the Itsekiri people. Both royals affirmed to build trade bridges, cultural platforms, and sustainable partnerships that benefit their people. And now to discuss this, we're joined by religion and culture expert, Professor Musa Xulu. Professor, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate you for coming on. I mean, let's just get started, shall we? What was the main purpose of the meeting between the two royals?
Well, good afternoon, my sister and your viewers. It was a very important milestone for the two kingdoms to come together. You must remember that in terms of the Pan-Africanism, for example, and in terms of the desire for Africa to rise up again, which is also being driven by, among others, the state of the African diaspora. So when these kingdoms come together, the big one from South Africa, the Zulu kingdom, the biggest kingdom here, especially also in the southern part of Africa, and one of the bigger kingdoms from West Africa, it became very important that a deal is signed so that they can be able to establish, through an MOU, some working relations to build the two nations.
And how significant is this meeting for cultural collaboration and diplomatic relations between the two communities, given all that's been happening with South African-Nigeria relations?
Well, it becomes important. You know, collaboration. The Zulu Kingdom, for example, has a large tract of land, about 3 million square miles. And if you look at that, which is ready for example, for investment in terms of agriculture and other forms of development, it would be a good thing for some investors, say from Nigeria, for example, and other parts of Africa and the African diaspora, could visit the Zulu Kingdom and start establishing some economic ties with the kingdom. And I think King Misuzulu KaZwelithini, the reigning king, is very clear on wanting to see development in the tract of land that has been bestowed upon him and the Zulu people by the South African government.
Are there any specific outcomes or agreements that resulted from this meeting?
Well, the agreements were primarily on the cultural exchange, the need for continuous cultural exchanges between the two kingdoms. And to that effect, for example, King Misuzulu has been invited to come to Nigeria in August next year. That's cultural, and of course to look at how investors from the Zulu kingdom and the kingdom in Nigeria can come together and be able to look at development going forward. The third way, of course, of looking at it is how to rebuild, collaborate in the rebuilding of Africa. We know colonialism has failed, but what also has happened is that the post-colonial settlement has not really reinstated the kingdoms to their rightful place as it was before the colonialists came here. So this is a good start to look at how the kings on the continent can stand up for restoration and restitution of their land and artifacts and everything, so that we can begin to look at more localized on the continent development, driven by investors on the continent. Right. It's for me, it's one of the biggest events that took place this year in the Zulu Kingdom.
Many thanks, Professor, and we can't wait for the Itsekiri people to welcome His Royal Highness back to Nigeria here for a return visit. We appreciate you for coming on, and thank you for doing this with us. Professor Musa Xulu there giving us a bit of insight following the Itsekiri King's visit to the Zulu land.